Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour special edition of the show. We're back to a two-track format. We've got Kentucky Downs. We've got Saratoga. Kentucky Downs is opening day today of their 7-day meet that we're going to be covering more than we ever have before on the In the Money Media Network. We're going to have shows for each of the 7 days of racing. We have a preview show. We've got daily written content from Michael Dombable as well. Really looking forward to it. And some important stakes races, some win you're in action going to be happening there. Speaking of winning, you're in action, 4 of them this weekend spread between Del Mar and Saratoga. We're going to be talking about those as well. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, no longer on the little house on the east side. I am down in Niskayuna, New York, in Tim and Natalie's backyard. I haven't thought of a clever name for it. It's just Tim and Natalie's backyard. We've got the smoker going. The beer is flowing. We're taking happy hour very, very seriously this week. And to join me and guide us through over the course of the next hour. And another fun thing, we'll actually get the close of the contest during the show, something we like to do. And to help us all the way through, a man you know from the work he does for NBC Sports, written and on the box, as well as his own eponymous podcast. He is TV's Matt Bernier. What's going on?
Pete, real quick, it was one of those things that, you blink and now it's September 1st. And not only for the Horseplayers Happy Hour Tour, which we'll talk about, but as far as the Breeders' Cup is concerned, I mean, this is the home stretch. We've only got 2 months left. You're probably going to see these horses maybe one more time. Some of the ones we saw last weekend, you're not going to see again before the first weekend in November at Keeneland. So it's business time.
Yeah, I like it. Little Flight of the Conchords reference there from you, too, with the classic tune. It's business time. But it's really true. We are in the home stretch, and it's really fun. It's one of the things. It's so sad when the summer meets end. And now, granted, we do have an extra weekend at Del Mar. I considered trying to make a cross-country trip and taking in that weekend, but realized there might be some unpleasant paperwork waiting for on my arrival home. So I've skipped that plan. And instead, just getting real excited for Woodbine Mile weekend up in Toronto. I will probably be doing Horseplayers Happy Hour 2 weeks from now, live from the track. I think they're a night card, so we won't have any of their racing. But, I mean, I might as well sit up in the Woodbine Club and have a little bit of fun. But from there on in, loads of Breeders' Cup stuff. We're going to be covering it. I was talking about covering Kentucky Downs more than ever. We're going to be covering the Breeders' Cup more than ever for free, and also, of course, for people who participate in our In the Money Plus service. But when it comes to covering the Breeders' Cup, one of the things I'm the most excited about is covering the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're playing for multiple BCBC seats. Let's start off with the regular season itself. The way these contests work, week in and week out, it's a $20 entry fee. You can have up to 3 entries. The VIG goes to charity, Thoroughbred Aftercare, TRF, TAA, making sure that we take care of the horses when their job on the track has come to an end. But from a contest standpoint, again, $20 buy-in. If you finish in the top 10% of one of these happy hours, you qualify for the Saturday BCBC qualifier, which is a $179 buy-in over on horseplayers.com. You can buy your way into that however you want. That's entirely up to you. That's just a nice, fun bonus to this entire thing. But if you finish inside the top 10, you're going to accumulate points toward the year-long Horseplayer Happy Hour Tour, which, again, we've only got a handful of weeks left as far as that's concerned. But if you finish inside the top X amount, you're going to qualify for the playoffs. And then from there, we're going to whittle it down 80, 40, the whole 9 final table. If you end up emerging from that with the highest score at the final table, you're going to win yourself a $10,000 BCBC seat. You can also qualify for the playoffs if you finish inside the top 2 each week. And the most important piece, if you end up with the most points at the end of the regular season, you will earn a $10,000 BCBC seat. So you've got 2 free $10,000 entries up for grabs. Again, $20 entry each week. And the juice goes to charity. There's really no downside to playing. If you've played in contests a million times, it's really a no-brainer. You can understand that this is I would say, a very positive expectation. And if you're new to contests, it's a low entry point, and you can get your feet wet and come here, have some fun on Thursday afternoon.
You say that. You've gotten so much better at giving that whole spiel, but you put in so much info. The only thing I'll add in is I'll underline. I can't add anything, but I'll say that it's important to note that $20,000 essentially that's added to the prize pot, that's at no cost to players. And also it's in no way, because it's free, it could in no way be a tax on the casual player. But we go one farther. And even if you just play 1 week, you come in the last week, you run second. Not only do you then get to play in the qualifier on Saturday, but you'll make the playoffs by finishing in one of those top 2 spots. So we've tried to thread the needle, square the circle, come up with a format that really does a lot of things to for a lot of people. And it's been working. We're 164 playing this week. I'm happy with that number. I still feel like if we could ever find a way, this is, production meeting in the middle of the show. If there's one thing about it that's tricky is to try to serve the audience best we can. It's not something that can be explained in like one sentence. If there was some way to simplify it, to get it out there to the common racing fan, how great of an opportunity this really was, I think it could even do better. I mean, I'm honestly surprised as good as the numbers are, I'm in some ways, I'm surprised we don't get more. But that's something we can talk about in the off season. Maybe there's a way to try to bring in a more casual fan as well. Not that we're unhappy with the level of support that we've gotten, but you can always do better, especially when it comes to raising money for our aftercare charities, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, who do such a good job accrediting all of the aftercare organizations, and our friends and founding partners at In the Money Media, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. So there's I think it's the kind of thing where hopefully we're just going to keep learning, and it's going to keep getting better, and we're going to keep having great stories to tell.
I think one of the things that, we talked about it before the season started, and, we've gone through and made a couple changes here and there. We do all New York races. We do this sort of mix because some people have been clamoring for it. I think one thing that we can talk about, and I don't know how, again, it really is up to the players, whoever supports this. Do we try to align things with the featured card or the featured contest any given Thursday over at horsetourneys.com? That way, a lot of people that are going to do the work for that race or that contest anyway, all right, well, I might as well play for $20 or $40 or $60 in happy hour, as opposed to perhaps having to go over races that they didn't intend on it. It's one of those things. The folks that this is their job, that's one thing. Whoever's working 9 to 5, they don't have all the time in the world. They got a family, they got other things going on. You got to pick and choose what races you do and don't look at. So maybe that's something we can talk about. Typically, though, we've chosen this format, so we're at least on for some of the races that are ongoing. Unfortunately, some of the Thursday features, they start a little bit later, that kind of thing. But it is what it is. There's never going to be a perfect answer, I don't think. But again, really, it all boils down to what do the players want, because that's what we'll do.
It's a lot of live and learn. One thing that I didn't realize is so often we got very committed, and I think we were right to committing to a time slot for the live stream, the 4 to 5. But that very often falls like right in between the regular horseplayers.com early birds and the late game. So something to look at, maybe tweaking the timing that we do this. Who knows? There's a lot of possibilities. We love your feedback. And speaking of feedback, that's one of the things that's special about this show in the larger context of the In the Money Media Network. We love being able to interact with fans in real time, such as Katie, who just hit that 5-1 shot at Del Mar. Cheers, Katie. That was good stuff. But yeah, feel free to share comments, questions, whatever you got for us. We love this as an opportunity to interact with everybody out there in the racing universe. We've got 4 minutes to this Kentucky Downs race. Why don't we? And then let's see. Do you have how far are we from Saratoga after that? Do you have a monitor up there in your office?
Efforting right now.
Meanwhile, I'll start talking about this race because this is one where I was
19 PTF, 19 minutes.
Oh, beautiful. So we have loads, not loads, but we'll have enough time to do 1 or 2 of the win in your ins in between. But I thought that on the podcast we did today, and I mentioned already, we're going to be doing pods every day of Kentucky Downs, sponsored by our friends at the Bet Makers. But on today's show, Michael Domable just made a very compelling case for the 9 runner in here, Just Call Ray, who made some good points about the one turf race and the trip that day and the form since on dirt. It sounds to me like Just Call Ray, he made a really compelling case, was going to be able to do well in here, and it sort of got me off of thinking anything else. I will mention another thing about Kentucky Downs in general. We talked about on the preview shows with both Brian Klatsky of Big Blue Nation Racing, who's very sharp, and of course Mike Maloney, who probably to most of our listeners at this point needs no introduction. They both made the point of the quirkiness of the Kentucky Downs course and how not only does that lend itself to horses for courses, it can sometimes lend itself to trainers for courses or jockeys for courses. And they both specifically said, pay attention on the first day and let's see who's doing well. Look who gets off to a good start, and maybe you'll be able to find some signal in that. Well, I got distracted getting into position, but through the first 4 races today, Tyler Gaffalione had 3 wins and a second. So if you want to upgrade at this point, automatically any Gaffalione runners throughout the rest of the card. He does not have one here in race number 6. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I know you've been running around too, Matt. I don't know if you've done your typical amount of work on this race here at Kentucky Downs, but very curious to see if anything leapt off the page at you. And we'll also open it up to the group. Does anybody else have any ideas on who might win this race?
Yeah, this today for me is going to be a lot of looking at the tote board and saying overlay, underlay, as opposed to going through and watching tape and doing X, Y, and Z. I'm just taking a look now, and I don't know. I think the 5 Ronstad's a little interesting at 5-1. Broke the maiden last out. It was going first out for Larry Ravelli's barn. From a time form US standpoint, based on the figure that's not adjusted for pace, is paired up 93s. Those are both tops. I think, again, tops really for any figs. Whether it's Thorograph, whether it's Bayer, whether it's time form, whether it's the sheets, rags, whatever you use. I think that can be a harbinger of things to come. I think the price is right on this one. And, I know a lot of people are sort of against the idea of last out maiden winners taking on winners for the first time. But all things considered, I'll take a shot on a barn that I know can win. And the horse is clearly in good form coming off of a victory. I think fits relatively well on figs. A little bit light maybe compared to some of the main players, but you're going to get rewarded with a price. So 5-1, I'm going to go with the 5.
I do not mind the first against winners things at certain conditions, whether, 2 Lifes being an obvious one, but sometimes in starter allowances too, just having a sharp horse. I'll also say this, my late father, were he alive, would be all over Ronstadt, all about the rock and roll / music hunch plays. And actually I'm trying to think what year it would have been, probably my 10th birthday, seeing Linda Ronstadt and Kevin Kline on Broadway in a performance of Pirates of Penzance. So there's a hunch play thing going here as well.
The other thing I'll throw out there, and again, doing it on the fly, the maiden score that this one comes out of has been extremely productive. You've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 horses come back, and 6 of them have improved their buyer substantially in their next start. The 3rd and 4th place finishers were next out winners. The 7th place finisher was the next out winner, and they've all improved their buyer by at least 10 points. So I think there's reason to believe if this one takes to the course, you got a decent shot.
They're off at Kentucky Downs. Few other ideas. Katie was liking that 2-1 on national security. We got a comment about, that's Katie. Katie with that Loveberry. He was on a 3-legged horse. That wasn't the one I meant to pull up. I was looking for Nancy's comment about the Ravelli Loveberry combination. So that's another vote for that runner. Here was an interesting one that I did not notice from Chris, who said there were some interesting daily double will pays on the 8. And is that not the 8 out there on the lead? I think it is right now. So I don't know. Somebody thinks they know something, though that certainly seems, eyeballing it, like it's going a little quick for the very testing Kentucky Downs surface. I don't know, Chris, if you followed in with that info on the 8 runner. Now, normally, if you're watching these Kentucky Downs races, you get to hear Larry Colmus calling instead of whatever it is that I'm doing right now. But Larry is going to be joining us on Sunday as part of one of our Kentucky Downs shows. He's going to be joined by Pat Cummings. We're going to have a really fun crew of people for these Kentucky Downs shows. I can't emphasize enough that you should be taking a look at them. Who's this making the bold move with the white face on the outside, Matt?
I can't tell if that's my horse or not.
It looked like a green saddle towel, but
yeah, I think that's my horse.
Oh, I think it is your horse because look, now the 5 is in front there. Let's see if you've got any finish. Looks a little leg weary, but maybe can find. Go on with it, Ronstadt. It's such a, the stretch is like deceptively long is the problem. Looked like winning there, but now just a few strides later, looking very vulnerable.
Still not out.
Side. Maybe dig in a little bit, and it's going to be dead tight, and I think you're just going to get pipped in this photo. It was a good pick. What was that won? Was that the 7? Did I see orange?
No, I believe that was Wicked Genius. The chalk, is that the 7? Yes.
Okay, it is the 7. There you go.
Yep,
well,
sorry about that.
A logical winner. Boy, that's a tough beat from a clever pick from you. But you'll see that a lot at Kentucky Downs that he or she who moves last moves best. And yeah, I don't know that could you have moved a hair early? I mean, it's so hard to judge. It's really in so many ways jockeys racetrack.
And you can't. I don't think like that's not a ride that I'm disappointed in. I feel like so often Kentucky Downs, and I think the conventional wisdom, even at these horses that have big kicks, you're still running uphill at the end of the run. And, again, we've all talked about that camera change where it looks like you're coming to the wire and then bang, they hit the next one. You still got a 16th of a mile to go. And you're thinking, oh, Jesus, there we go. I don't think the late kicks are nearly as potent at Kentucky Downs as they are maybe with your traditional flat course. That's purely anecdotal. It's how I go about handicapping the races. But I think being in position is much more important than necessarily having the best finish. So I have no problem with the ride that Loveberry gave this one. You hit the front, you just got run down by a maker horse ridden by Ricardo, who was the 8-5 morning line favorite. I mean, I have no issue with that. Disappointing, but it is what it is.
And we'll get a sad trombone from Rob womping us, hoping Rob has shown up in the past at the Farrier Bar shows, hoping he's going to do that on Saturday. And the rumor has it he might be bringing some interesting beer, which is the beverage of choice today. Drinking a little of this it's called Alleg IPA, sort of a Belgian style IPA that I'm grooving on. You look like you're behaving today. I don't see any beer. Or is it just out of frame?
Oh no, I've got a mixer over here.
Man,
it's been a wild couple days. Just there's a bunch of thing going on, and I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around.
All right, we hoping everything's good with you.
Yeah. I mean, just life stuff. That's all. I'm not going to use Tom Brady's quote, and I don't want to insinuate that that's what's going on, but just, life happens. That's all.
It does. It does indeed. It never stops spinning here in the middle of infinity. Let's talk about some of these win and you're in races this weekend. I think we got to start with the one that is just going to create such a shift, I think, one way or the other in the Breeders' Cup Classic future betting market. And speaking of which, we have another Breeders' Cup future pool this weekend. I'll pull up all the details on that, but look for that at your ADW. You're going to want to see this race 8:50 Saturday night Eastern before you commit to any kind of price. I think in this second future pool that they're doing, first time ever they've done this pool future betting for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And of course, I mean, there's really one question when it comes to the Pacific Classic this year, Matt. Is Flightline going to continue to be able to do Flightline-like things at 1.25 miles, or is he going to be vulnerable to one of the others?
Well, I mean, if you just look at him for what he's done in his career and you've watched the way that he's finished his races, I mean, I don't think 2 turns is going to be a problem. I don't think 1.25 miles is outside of his realm. I had said after that N1X race at Del Mar last September that he looked like he actually wanted to go longer, not shorter.
Yep.
But then again, if we're just talking, if you take names out, take all the sort of stories, the pomp and circumstance away, betting a horse at 1-5, going 2 turns for the first time, never mind 1.25 miles. I mean, just in my bones, that's a bad bet. Now, I think he's going to win. I think he's, an exceptional talent. But I couldn't sit here and say, the problem is, too, I was going to say, if you want to single him in picks, I mean, he inherently is going to destroy the value of any real pick, isn't he? Even if you get bombs in some of the other races. So I think you're either speculatively playing against him because there's really been nothing to suggest that he won't continue on. And that from a gambling standpoint, that's what it is. Otherwise, you're just going to sit back and see if he can do the job. I don't have an interest in trying to bet against him. But I do think he's taken on good horses. I mean, Country Grammar continues to get, I think, underrated, sort of disrespected for what he's capable of on his best day. And my old friend Royal Ship, who I joked about it, but it was true. Last year, San Diego Day, a year ago, I had Country Grammar and Royal Ship 1 and 2 in my Breeders' Cup Classic top 10. And a year later, they run 1-2 in the San Diego, and they look like the real, alternatives to Flightline. I don't know that either of them will beat him, but I at least know Country Grammar will make him earn it. Put it that way. Royal Ship, your guess is as good as mine. What version we get?
Yeah, he's a tricky read. I'm I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to single Flightline, and I'm just going to say I think he's a freak. I'm not going to take 1-9 to win or whatever, but I'm going to look at him as a horizontal free square. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, I can live with it. A Country Grammar seems to me a horse that is meant to move forward and looks like one that the same scenario, I think, where things go wrong for Flightline makes a lot of sense as the one where things could go right for Country Grammar. So that would be if you made me like make a win bet in the race, but my main action I think is just going to be to single and move on. The recent workouts, he looks as good as ever, if not better, which is hard to imagine. You're absolutely right. You don't get the warm feels as a gambler, not just on the question about this horse going this far, but also because it's hard to trust a horse that is campaigned in such a conservative manner. I mean, they're doing, it's not criticizing at all. They're doing an incredible job getting the most out of this horse. But at the same time, it surely suggests that there's something underlying that could, go wrong. And then, you 1-9 up in smoke. So it's a very tricky situation. But I think from a wagering point of view, that's what I'm going to do. And mostly I want to sit back and watch.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing too. And maybe I'm being a little bit harsh saying, value in picks is gone. But I feel like, I mean, is it ridiculous to think 80% of picks are going to be singled to him or
I'd be okay with that. I think I might be getting value if it's only 80%.
Right. Yeah. Purely on numbers, you're effectively talking about a sort of 1-4 shot in there. So I do understand that part, but it just seems like even if you get chaos in the races leading into it, he inherently is just going to just destroy value unless you do go against the grain and you say, you know what, maybe you're not spreading and you're not playing some massive, massive ticket or multiple tickets that cost, many, many hundreds or thousands of dollars. But you take that speculative approach and say, look, I know Country Grammar's best game is 1.25 miles. I know he can run at Del Mar. I know he's in good hands with Baffert. And Flightline needs to answer X, Y, and Z. Is that crazy to think that rather than taking Country Grammar on the win end, maybe even in doubles, right? The race prior is, I believe, the Del Mar Derby. Why not play something into Country Grammar relatively heavy, knowing he's going to be the second choice in the P Classic? But I would assume in doubles, he's probably going to give you a little bit of inflated value. I think maybe, say he goes off at that 7-2 or 4-1 in the race, maybe he's 6 or 7-1 in a double, just because everyone's going to be singled to Flightline. That's just, again, I'm just thinking out loud here, but yeah, it's going to be very difficult. If you think Flightline wins, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to find any kind of real value.
I don't disagree. I mean, look, I'm not saying this is a bet of the year.
Right.
It's Pack Classic night. It's a mandatory payout in the pick six. It's a fun sequence with a bunch of stakes races. Because you mentioned you've got the Del Mar Derby beforehand. You've also got in the same sequence the Del Mar Mile. And then after it's the Del Mar Handicap, which is another win in your in race that we'll get to a little bit later in the show. So, I mean, I'm probably playing it. It's probably more of an action thing, but even with and this is one thing where I think a lot of people smartly look at an action bet and say, I'm just going to take a shot and bet a little to win a lot. But the way I just see this race and feel about this horse at this point, I'm going to say I can still do okay with a tight ticket singling this horse. And that's the approach that I'm going to take in this year's Pacific Classic. Any other thoughts on this one, Matt?
No, I just think it's going to be, to your point, and I mean, we'll talk about it more when we get into the Jockey Club talk, but that race is going to crystallize what this division is right now, where he either goes out, struts his stuff, wins the way that he's won all these other races, and he becomes I mean, I don't even know him. If I'm guessing, he'd probably be somewhere in that sort of 8-5 range for the Breeders' Cup Classic, maybe 7-5, maybe even shorter, who knows? And if he loses, I mean, all bets are off. I feel like you've got horses that wouldn't have considered it. I think about Cyberknife. I had mentioned him. Brad Cox had brought up the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. If Flightline loses on Saturday, I can guarantee you he'll end up in the Classic instead of the Dirt Mile. Because I can't imagine, and I say that because I can't imagine the connections of Flightline would go to the Classic at that point. It's just, maybe I'm being a little bit overzealous there, but I think if he loses, I can't imagine they would go to that route.
No, I think with as brilliant as he's been going shorter, unless it's some strange situation where they both freak and run huge figures and run. I mean, there are scenarios where I think he loses and doesn't go there, but I mean, I almost think he's like a win or run out kind of horse here. And if I'm right about that, then it's classic, or it's, something else, shorter. But all right, production meeting in the middle of the show. AJ, I didn't do the whole hello and welcome bit, but let's clip that whole previous discussion about the Pacific Classic and the future wager, and we'll use that somewhere on the late week show, because I want to have that covered. We are doing a special on the Del Mar Pick 6 mandatory payout. Folks can find that, but I would love to, at least on the late week show, to have that conversation in there. Just a reminder, we've got this future wager happening this weekend. Flightline closed at 5-2 or close to it in the first iteration. We'll see, based on what happens Saturday, where he closes in the second one. There's going to be 24 betting interest, 23 individual horses, and an all others option. You can find it on your ADWs for the Breeders' Cup future wager. We encourage folks to check that out.
We have
how many
1 minute to post?
1 minute. Let's go to Saratoga. And
1 minute. 1 minute to post.
And talk about what we see here in race number 7. Another one of our contest races that we can chat about here. Let's see. What did I have notes on this somewhere? Let me pull them up.
While you're looking, I'll at least throw out a horse that I believe. So we were on for the 50 claimer in late June that Rosemary Potatoes ran in. Miserable trip. I thought was probably 2 to 3 lengths the best. Comes back against older horses in the starter allowance, just kind of even throughout. Then they drop back into the 53-year-old restricted company, and she's just bit even again, but there wasn't a ton of pace. Timeform US suggests she actually moved up. Now she goes into the N2L company, and she's 16-1. There are other horses in here. Yeah, fine, great. They may be faster than her. It's a group of N2L horses. Don't get stuck into a price that's too short. Rosemary Potatoes, I think, is interesting at 16-1 now, the number 3.
I mean, at that price, I'm not going to argue with that case at all, and definitely a horse that can shake things up in terms of your contest. I thought that the 1A was very, very logical in here. I like the old school angle of giving a little extra credit to a horse that was in an entry when the entry mate scratches. Looking at the recent form, those races and those horses were better than this. Obviously, no running last time, but did have a little bit of trouble. Third off the layoff here, significantly dropping in class, and has enough speed to be, I think, there or thereabouts throughout. Joe Sharpbarn been going okay. I think this horse makes a lot of sense. Number 1A, Classic Lynn, and I certainly would say let's get some 3s for Rosemary Potatoes in there. Matt makes a compelling case based on that one's body of work in this spot. Let's see. We've got some comments to bring in. Let's see. We had a question about from Katie. Does anyone think Country Grammar is as good as Epicenter? Well, before the last run, I think that was a position you could maybe posit. I think now it's much harder to make that case. I mean, look, the horse is a tough older horse with all kinds of big races on his best. But I mean, Epicenter right now, even if Flightline does Flightline-like things, this is a horse who on figures can hang with him, who's clearly better at 1.25 miles, I think, than a lot of other horses. And if Life is Good and Flightline go with the same running style, that's just going to make Handy Epicenter look all the better. I think Country Grammar has a bit to find with Epicenter. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I guess it depends what you make or what you think of the fig from the Travers. I just wanted him to move forward because he had kept running the same race, and he did. He moved forward in a giant way. I go back to, I don't think Country Grammar gets the respect he deserves, despite being a Dubai World Cup winner, despite beating a number of talented horses throughout his career. He's got multiple triple-digit buyers, a few of them up into the high 100 range. If Epicenter's going to win, we're purely basing it off that Travers. And maybe that's what he is now. I'm certainly not going to dispute that. And if there's a chance that he's, I don't know, the third or fourth choice in the Classic, then, I mean, that's a very appetizing proposition. I have a funny feeling this horse, he already had a fan base before last Saturday's race. Now, I think I don't want to say he's going to be an underlay in the Classic, but I could see a scenario, even with Flightline doing Flightline things on Saturday, I could see a scenario where Epicenter might be at least challenging for second choice with Life is Good. And that, to me, all of a sudden, that becomes a different we're talking about a different territory at that point.
Katie clarifies how much she, I'm guessing, likes Epicenter, but predicts maybe he might go off sub 3-1 in the Classic. To me, that just all depends on who comes to the dance. You know, if it's Informed Life is Good and it's Flightline, I think you almost have to get more than 3s. If one of those doesn't go, yeah, then probably right. Probably a 5-2 shot. If they somehow both don't go, he's a 4-5 at this point, as they're off, and my runner makes the lead. Appears to be rather easily. So that's good. We'll take that. And Rosemary Potatoes looks to be right in behind. What
We're pocketed right up.
Can we get a 2-speed number here? What do you think?
I was going to say 1-3 to the hoop.
Let's see what we can do. We got the 6 runner may have something to say about this. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, we certainly can't complain. Looks like they're going to even tempo, not slow as I predicted, but certainly nothing that these can't handle.
I'm trying to look at it on the fly, taking a look at Odds Checker to see if there are prices for the Classic, because I think Katie might be right. I have a funny feeling this horse he is the clear second choice right now, at 11-2.
Okay, was 5 the other day,
and so I mean you're still looking in that kind of 4.5 to 1, 5 to 1 range. Excuse me, yeah, about 4.5. I don't know if he stays there, but Life is Good's at 6, and it sounds like he may end up running in the Woodward at Aqueduct. I don't know. I mean, again, you're banking on that one Travers race against 3-year-old restricted company being the race that you think can win him the Breeders' Cup Classic. Are we going to go 1-3?
I mean, there's stuff coming from the back, but we're getting a brief thrill. Yeah, it's coming apart now.
Yeah.
We might have gone too fast. The 8 makes a big move. The 5 looks to have that 8 move covered, unless that thing finds. Yeah, we went away rather tamely in the end.
Yeah.
5-8-2, I think it was. Yeah, that halfway through the race, you loved our chances, but we went poof, unfortunately, at the 8th pole.
But I think not to totally bring us back, but like to Katie's point, I think there is something to. I don't want to call them, fan favorites, but they are, and they will take. And please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm sure some people will hear what they want to hear. He certainly fits in the race and deserves to be among the top 3 choices.
Oh my God, definitely.
But he's got one race that's remotely close to running with Flightline, and he's never taken on older horses. He did it against 3-year-old restricted company, and I don't want to be sort of an armchair quarterback, but we go back and look at that Travers. Well, I mean, if everybody and their brother's telling me that Rich Strike is a bum, how does he almost finish second? So I know. I mean, being honest. I mean, I didn't think he was a bum, but people were making
ran
notes.
Very good. I mean, I think his figure looked. The figures to me look very realistic in the Travers, just based on the known form. And yes,
I think they're a little high, but because that would suggest that Rich Strike ran the buyer is a 105. He ran a 101 in the Derby. So if he ran the best race of his life and he finished 4th, I don't know. I mean, that seems a little difficult for me to really sink my teeth into. But, again, I said it on my show on Monday. Figures are tools. They're not the end all be all. You draw your own conclusions. They're data points, and do with them what you will. I'm kind of viewing the Travers as more of a 108 kind of number for Epicenter, 109. And if that's the case, look, at 1.25 miles, there are very few that can do that. But to take 4-1 against a horse like Flightline or Life is Good, even, who I'm dubious about 1.25 miles, I don't know. It seems light. I think I would want something in that 5, 6, 7 to 1 range. I don't know if you're going to get it.
It's going to be. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, we're going to have so much more data after tomorrow. Let's talk about the other win in your in race for the Breeders' Cup Classic that's happening just up the road here in Saratoga on Saturday. Jockey Club Gold Cup. We got a field of 8. I mean, as you were talking, I did get the idea that this could be a year where you just see something strange happen. And some of these horses that are maybe proven at the grade 1 level, but not at the grade 1 plus level, who go off at just crazy prices, have a chance to get involved. Could one of them be in this Jockey Club Gold Cup field? I think one of the first questions you have to ask yourself is what to make of Olympiad. I'm inclined to be forgiving. We talked about it after the Whitney, about the weird track condition that day, in that we caught that pop-up storm that hit the track when it was completely open, and they only sealed and harrowed after. So I'm a little more inclined to the kind of excuses that you usually consider goofy from trainers when they talk about a horse not handling the track. But then in a much more legitimate way, just look at the situations Olympiad did well in looking at pace figures. He was on top of even paces. And I think there's a logic to he just couldn't handle the pace of Life is Good that day. He was taken out of his preferred situation on a track that was a little weird. And he just didn't really run. I mean, he tried, but he just, obviously didn't look good. He wasn't himself. I don't see that any blazing speed in here. I think he might be able to sit on top of things and get the kind of soft trips he had earlier in the year. And we might see the old Olympiad. And if we do, I'm not sure if any of these can really beat him. Maybe American Revolution, but I think Olympiad's A game looks good enough to me to get the job done. American Revolution being the other one I'm interested in. Grade 1 winner, multiple 100 figures, and just appears to be working well as well. What do you think of this race?
Well, I mean, we chatted about Olympiad following the Whitney. I brought it up, and I brought it up with some folks in a production meeting yesterday. We'll be on air from 4:30 to 6 on NBC, with this race being the main event. I said, some folks have looked at it and said, well, he was chasing much better, and maybe it is as simple as he got discouraged when he couldn't reel in Life is Good. If you are a Timeform US user, the pace figs that he was running in the Whitney were considerably slower than the ones that he ran in the Foster. So I do get the idea that, well, okay, in the Foster, Caddo River came back to him and he just went on with it, but he went faster earlier, and he still kept finding. So maybe it was the racetrack. Maybe it was that Life is Good is just a far superior talent and he was never going to run him down. I'm going to subscribe to the fact that I think he bounced. I think he ran so far and away the best race of his life in the Foster. They wheeled him back on 4 weeks, and it just took the starch out of him. And he tried to go, and he just couldn't keep finding. If you take a look at the final numbers, the final times for Timeform US, compared to his other races prior to the Foster, he ran the third best race of his life in the Whitney. And basically my point is, he didn't run poorly that day, but he didn't run nearly as well as he ran in the Foster. And I think maybe that race just took a little bit of the starch out of him. I'm expecting him, if Mott has him here, I'm assuming he's good to go. Now, maybe he doesn't like Saratoga. He has won over the track before. I'm expecting a better version of him. But, I typically don't do this with a show that we've got on Saturday. I want to look at something else. But I've been sticking to my guns. I believe in American Revolution. I think he's a 1.25 mile horse. I think he is not far off from the top runners, despite the fact that I got him at 30-1 in the first Breeders' Cup Future pool. He's 30-1 in the morning line in that pool for round 2. I think he's a much better horse than people give him credit for. And I'm going to stick to it. I don't think this distance is an issue for him. I think he is fast enough if they want to use him early. He outbroke the whole field in the Foster. And Luis Saez decided to take back when everybody and their brother was lining up for it going into the first turn. I don't know if that's going to be the case this time around. You've got Joel Rosario up. If I had my choice, I would go. Make Olympiad work for it, because who knows, maybe he can't run with quality speed anymore. I have no doubt about the distance with American Revolution. He's my pick. I'm hopeful to bet him. I hope he goes off close to that 3 to 1. I think that would be a very good price.
I'm not sure whose end that is. That could be me.
that may be on you.
When you hop around on this website that I'm on,
I hear Larry.
Yeah, it puts the audio back on. I have to figure out a way to deal with that when I'm hopping back. I'm not used to hopping back between the multiple tracks anymore. That does mean it's 7 minutes at Kentucky Downs, but that still gives us a chance to catch up on some comments if anybody wants to share their Jockey Club Gold Cup thoughts. Rob was impressed by the payouts in the last race. more epicenter chatter. I feel like we've covered that close enough for now. Yeah, I mean, and Rich Strike, it's a tough one. I mean, I thought he showed me something the other day, just in terms of how fast he ran. But I guess you could also make the case that results wise, it would have been. He's probably supposed to pass another horse or two. Did you give me your overall impression of Rich Strike's Travers?
I thought he ran great. I thought he basically ran back to the Derby. But my only point is to suggest that he ran a fair bit better than he did in the Derby on the clock. I guess maybe purely on time, maturation, the whole nine. I kept going back to it. I sound like a broken record. The Belmont Stakes is not the race to judge the horse off of.
Right.
He was never going to run well there with that running style.
Right.
He just wasn't. Those kind of horses don't run well going 1.5 miles at Belmont. They don't. So draw a line through that. I thought I laid out last weekend why that Belmont fig is also too low. And again, he basically continued to back that theory up, 10-point improvement minimum. I thought he ran really well. And I love what Eric Reed said in the Daily Racing Form article. I assume it was with Dave Grenning. Apologies if I'm giving credit to the wrong person. He brought up the Clark instead of the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think that would be so far and away the smartest move to make. And I know, and I mentioned on my show, when push comes to shove, I'm sure the temptation to run in a race like the Classic may prove a little bit hard to turn down. But with the horse's affinity for Churchill Downs, with him at least proving, I think he proved in the Travers, that he was not a genuine fluke. He ran really, really well in both of those races. And I think in the Clark, you're either going to catch horses coming out of the Classic or the Dirt Mile, that was their goal. You're going to probably catch them 4 weeks later, somewhere thereabouts, maybe not quite on their A game. 1.8 miles not a problem for them. I feel like that should be the goal, the Clark, and worry about whatever down the road next year. But I thought he ran really well, and I'm just kind of happy for he and the connections that, look, he's not a stiff. He's not a bum. He earned the Kentucky Derby. Say what you will. The pace was brilliant. Epicenter may have ran the best race, but Rich Strike ran that day to go and run him down. And I'm just glad that people now can at least look at him and say, oh, well, maybe I underestimated him.
I'm definitely in that camp of somebody who was negative and pleasantly surprised. I guess the pro of the Clark for Rich Strike is Churchill Downs, surface he loves that not every horse does. Does he need that 1.25 miles to show his best? He didn't look like it the other day. I mean, looked like he came there to run second in the race and flatten out a bit. So maybe that's 1.8 miles, right? The Clark?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm kind of feeling your plan. That makes a lot of sense to me as far as that goes. One more point on American Revolution before we move on. I'm not sure if we'll go right to this Kentucky Downs race or what we're going to do. But, I mean, you'll feel awfully good if he runs. I mean, if he's a good second, let alone an impressive winner, you've got to feel pretty good about the 30-1 you have on him, don't you? I mean, that seems like a good price.
I think, and again, I could be way off, but for folks that I feel like I know what Happy Saver is. We talked about this after the Whitney. It looked like Happy Saver was going to win the Whitney for a minute. And American Revolution, I feel like, was taking his lunch money in morning workouts. And the connections chose not to run American Revolution in the Whitney for all the right reasons. The entire outfit had Life is Good. Why would you run them against each other, especially if this horse is probably better suited for 10 than Life is Good is? So, yeah, to your point, even if he doesn't win, let's say Olympiad beats him, but he runs a good second, I'll be tickled pink. I think this is a really good horse that for whatever reason, maybe because he's a New York bred, maybe because he doesn't win every race that he runs in, that people just don't seem to think he's truly, upper echelon. But I don't know. We've talked about it, Pete. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to a horse these days is they lose a race because all of a sudden they can't run. I mean, that logic is just so crazy to me, but hopefully knock wood, I'm going to be the beneficiary.
Couple of just other quick notes to share. Wayne suggests Rich Strike only likes Churchill. I mean, I think he showed the other day that that's not true, Wayne. I mean, the Saratoga race, at least on the clock, was very good. And he makes a comparison to She Dares the Devil. That's a whole tangent we don't need to go on right now. We don't have the time. One other Jockey Club Gold Cup question, and then we'll go to the leaderboard or the race, depending on how much time we have. AJ, you could make the call on that. Keeping in mind that we need 1 minute at least to give some quick thoughts. Anything to make of Saya's ending up on first captain? He correctly says it's always tricky to follow the jockey musical chairs. Does that seem significant to you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, especially for how often Saez rides for Todd. Certainly not lost on me. And First Captain's a good horse. He's paired up Buyer Tops of 98. I'm expecting him to move forward. I guess my opinion is just going to be I'm going to fade the Suburban where you had 3 horses separated by a blanket. But that really does kind of sum up the race as a whole, doesn't it? That it's Olympiad, American Revolution, and then everybody else, that one of those others, they're going to have to jump up in a pretty big way and have one of the top 2 kind of stub their toe a little bit.
It could also be one of these. He committed to this horse for, the Breeders' Cup before the last race, and American Revolution wasn't really supposed to necessarily. They didn't know if he was going to be here. As you point out, the jockey musical chairs game is, you put yourself away a lot of time by following that one. Let's look how many minutes we have. 2 minutes at Kentucky Downs. So let's go directly to Kentucky Downs and we'll share some thoughts on that one ahead of this. If you have a pick or something you're excited about in the gallery, please let us know. Race number 7. I know you said, Matt, that you had an idea. Did you have something that you liked in the feature today if people are playing picks?
I do. Yeah, we can talk about it after. Oh, but this is kicking off something. I like Ramsey Solution in the tap. Okay. Down on the inside for Safi. Second start off of a year-plus layoff, but horses run well here. Actually won this race 2 years ago, and I thought the return effort down at Gulfstream on the synth was pretty solid. So that would be my play. 8-1 on the line. Probably comes down a little bit.
Very, very interesting and good point. Let's see how that one can get on a little bit later. And then as far as horses to potentially put this one with, I thought that there were a bunch of good cases on the show. I thought the most interesting point was to maybe take a shot against Therapist here on the idea that this was a horse that was meant to run the other day in Saratoga in the West Point, I guess it was, but things got washed off the turf and it didn't work out. And there were a bunch of interesting cases of horses to potentially take this one on. I thought one case that was interesting was the long range Toddy case as a horse that has never stepped on the turf before, but you'll sometimes see this with dirt runners that, especially ones that can finish a little bit. They have a certain toughness and ability when they get on the other surface. I mean, this is a big long shot that, you look at some of the company lines. I'm willing to take a little bit of a shot at the price that the long range Toddy is currently 14-1. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I mean, so to your point, this really feels like a race where you've got a lot of unknowns because you've got horses that just never panned out fully on dirt. And they're, I don't know, just trying to find out if they can handle turf for a giant purse. I've spoken about it before. I'm really a big believer in horse for course at Kentucky Downs, but also horses that have had success at Keeneland in the past. And that can transfer back and forth. And we can dive into that more later on. But a credit, the 7 fits that bill basically to a T. Has won at Kentucky Downs, has also won at Keeneland, has won from a pace pressing position as well as being on the lead. Haven't seen this one in just under a calendar year. So, that's certainly something that you have to factor in, but the distance isn't going to be an issue. If anything, it might be a hair on the short side. Won the Dueling Grounds Derby last year at 36-1. I think this one's going to be more forward than maybe some would think. And I think this one's a fair price at 7-1.
Yeah, it's interesting. Taking a little money too, the 7s off the 10-1 morning line, which I actually like for a horse with a really big layoff. Maybe an indicator. Maybe we use that as a proxy for a tip that the horse is doing well. And the last workout looks okay. Also, I have no problem with that idea. I think I might play the 7 and the 10 here as we've got 0 minutes at Kentucky Downs. Lots of comments coming in about the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Question about Country Grammar as a workhorse. Yeah, I don't think he's historically been a great workhorse. I don't think he's working any differently now than he had before. I mean, maybe you worry a little bit after theoretically underperforming the last day, but I picked him in the San Diego, and I think in retrospect, everybody else was right. It was just a prep for this, and he's supposed to run a lot better here today. Apparently there is a slight delay, says Brian, at Kentucky Downs, some sort of power outage. Well, the camera's still working, so that's good. Katie chimes in with a long range Toddy thought, just saying, hey, it's about the class, so you probably can get over the surface. That's kind of how I'm seeing it too, Katie. Let's see what happens. Let's see. I wonder how long they're going to mill about here. It leaves us in a little bit of a precarious position. We could start to talk about one of the other win in your in races. We've got, why don't we talk about the Flower Bowl? Just because
I was going to say there's not much to talk about.
Yeah. I think for me, it's one of these things like, how many words can you do the joke on the show in the old days? How many words can you do the show in? And for me, it might be 3, and technically not even that many. I'm just a huge fan of Warlike Goddess, and I'm just not sure who's going to turn her away. She'd be on this massive winning streak if it wasn't for the presence of that Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf running line, where I think you can make an argument she was as good as anybody in there. Made this massive middle move, struck the front too soon, just been imperious in victory this year, but just seems to adapt to every pace scenario. If you want to make a case against, I guess you could say, in this zero-paced race, is she going to be too far back? The Timeform US Pace Projector has her that way. But when you watch her races, she's handier than that, and I just don't think she's going to be that far back. And, Rosario's rides the inner so well. I don't know what's going to beat her. I'd take the 2 to 5. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to Flightline in the P Classic. I just am not that enticed to try to take a shot against her. The real question is, and it sounds like, based on, I believe, if you go over to the Breeders' Cup's website, when you take a look at the probables, she's not even listed for the Filly and Mare Turf. She's listed for the Turf, which makes all the sense in the world, given I think she's much better suited out at 1.5 miles than she would be at 1 3/16 miles down at Keeneland for the Filly and Mare Turf this year. It would be on par with a Jackie's Warrior kind of surprise if she were to lose, frankly. I mean, there's really nothing to knock about her. She just shows up. She runs her race. I love the short comment last time out. She wins by 1.25 lengths, as rider pleased. I mean, she's just way the horse to beat in here. To be fair, I need to watch the tape on Capital Structure because she did rally into no pace in that last run. But I mean, she would need to be so much better than she's been recently and have Warlike Goddess, come back to earth. I don't know that I really see it happening.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty straightforward one. Let us know if you have any alternatives in the comments to Warlike Goddess. I wanted to come up with some sort of maybe pace play against, but I just at the end of the day couldn't in good conscience recommend betting against her. And honestly, if you're English and you're watching and there's 1 to 2 or somehow 3 to 5 around, I would fill your boots. And I think you'll be getting the win or lose. If you can get that number on her, I'm pretty sure you're getting the value. So we really wanted to have this whole contest on well, not the whole contest, but we really wanted to have the end of the contest on today. But depending on what this delay is all about, we may or may not be able to do that. Hopefully, maybe they look to be turning now and heading to the gate. That would be very nice, because we do not have a ton of time left. We'll certainly stick with you through the next race at Saratoga. How many minutes do we have there, Matt, if you have the monitor cranking?
I mean, we've still got 10 minutes, so
we should. You'd like to think we'll be okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know how this works anyway, and it looks like they're coming to the gate. But of course, they'll probably go off right on top of each other, and we'll have to go double barrel. But it does look like they're getting ready to load into the gate down there. Have you ever been to Kentucky Downs?
No, I've never been. I want to go badly. I'm about 10 to 1, I'd say, to make the bet sponsored day. I might just try to go in for the day. I think that's next Thursday, maybe. It's very traveling back from here and all this stuff, but it looks like fun. I mean, Jack Jenkins was raving about it, giving us some of the entertainment options. And I know if you're involved in that Epicenter NFT project that we've been talking about a bunch on the airwaves, you get some sort of VIP setup if you head down there. I think it looks like a lot of fun. Have you been for work?
So last year I went down and covered it on site. This year I'll be in Connecticut in studio. And how's this for a duo down there? It'll be Edzo and Nick Luck.
Oh, how fun.
So they're gonna be in good shape down there. But it's really unique. And I mean, I think especially someone like you, coming from so many races that you've gone to, race courses in Europe, it's super unique when you walk around the corner and it's just this giant sort of looking field with elevation changes. And I go, they can't be running horse races out here. And sure enough, it's very cool. The paddock area is neat. Just all around, I thought it was a very unique experience, one unlike anything else in the United States.
Yeah, maybe who knows? Maybe I will try to get there. It's a Thursday, but I can broadcast here from there. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So maybe we can pull some rabbits out of hats. I do certainly want to check it out sometime. They're going quick here.
I think they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
22
I don't
and
mind.
change.
Yeah, I was hoping in my original reading of the race, I was seeing Lone Range Toddy being closer. At this point, I'm worried that your 7 runner, who I also like, is too close to what's happening here. This feels like one that could unfold like an accordion deep in the lane. Long Range Toddy doesn't seem to be getting over the turf great, right? He's already kind of being asked. That might be tricky. I'm looking for some sweet travelers in behind to make some moves. But who knows? For the moment, the front runners seem to be hanging in there. But we'll see off this double length stretch how it all unfolds. You see one coming from the back that you like here? Or you think it might hold together?
No, I think it's holding together. And again, I mean, so much of it is just positioning. Like this horse way on the outside is running, but I don't think he's going to have enough time.
Look at that good view of the uphill here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a war of attrition. It's a stamina test, and the late kicks, they get dulled a little bit just because you're running uphill. So if you're in position at the top of the lane, and look at the final time. So maybe that it's really not as fast as it seems. If they're going 33-2 for a final time, there's a chance that those fractions may actually be playing slower than what they are. I don't know what the weather's been like down there. Maybe it's just super dry, but yeah, I would still maintain you need to be much more. You need to be in a better position than necessarily have the best finish. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's more grindy, gallopy than it is for quickeners.
Right.
On our typical 2-turn, left-handed, tight, firm. Quickeners are the horses that you want, and this is not that.
Right.
The 7 ran great, really, to be in the vanguard there, and then also to still be sort of sticking on again late. But let's give a word for the winner. That was Max KO, who was coming out of that race at Colonial and ended up being a pretty square price. It looks like on the board. Just a really nice journey through. Produced at the right time for Zayas, and we'll get the money for his backers in that race at Kentucky Downs. We've got one more live race to cover. We've got one more win and you're in race to talk about. I would love to let's get one more leaderboard. We haven't done the tour leaderboard either. That's another thing to do. You know what? I don't want to miss giving the tour leaderboard. So let's go to that, AJ, if you have a minute to pop that up. And the order of events will be tour leaderboard. We'll talk about the last win and you're in. Chris Couples chimes in that it's been drought, basically little bit of rain the last couple of weeks, but not enough to make a dent. So yeah, speedy surface for sure. Michael Cavana, still the overall leader, 340. Greg Kingman making good progress though, 320. Matt Abbott, 190. Dylan Donnelly, who nearly won an NHC tour, looking pretty good on the Horseplayer Happy Hour tour, 180. In the money zone, Michael Donnelly doing very well in second last year, 170.
Did we lose PTF?
60. Oh, am I back?
No, you're back now.
Okay. Did I mention Michael Domable? Did we get to that? Dave Nichols, Kirk Rockwell, Tyler Sisk, Howard Johnson, Trish Smith, a frequent contributor to the comments, Matthew Vagvolgi, a frequent guest and somebody who was at the final table last year, Nancy Spence, also active in the comments, and we'll do the last one in the tie for ninth right now, another pal, Ernest Hay Jr., 130 to close out the ones that we'll do in that top 10. But remember, you can vault up and get into a contending position very, very easily, and all it takes is one top 2 finish to give yourself a chance to play in our playoffs and avail yourself of that extra $10,000 value Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. Let's talk about the Del Mar Handicap. More win and you're in action happening on Saturday. This will go as the race after the Pack Classic, so you have opportunities to play doubles out of that race especially if you think you can beat Flightline and want to try to juice things up a little bit. I could see that being a potentially useful pool for you. Who do you think is going to win this one, Matt?
I mean, to be fair, I haven't done the super deep dive just yet. I guess my real opinion is Tis a Magician at 4-1 on the morning line, trying turf for the second time. He may be the class of the field, but he doesn't really do much for me from a gambling standpoint. Tango 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 is interesting for Jack Sisterson. This is a horse that was close to the hot pace in the Eddie Reed, faded at the end, but you've got a few races at Belmont, specifically the 1.25 mile race, 3-back, that I think that stacks up quite well against some of these other horses. I don't think the distance will be a problem. You're looking at 20-1 on the morning line. I could be enticed by a horse like that, or even my old friend Red King, who on figs maybe isn't quite what he once was, but Phil D'Amato knows how to win these long distance turf races. Barrios is riding really well at Del Mar, and the distance we know is not going to be a problem for him. There are other horses in similar form that'll be a fraction of the price as someone like Red King. So I'd probably, again, acknowledging I need to do a little bit more work, 4-5, 5-4, somewhere thereabouts.
All right, fair enough. I was taking a look at the horse that won that pace battle in the Eddie Reed, but lost the war. Master of Foxhounds on the stretch out. I was thinking might be able to go even fractions on this blood. Shouldn't have a problem going the mile and 3/8. So it certainly did not work out well in this race last year, but I think different pace scenario. I was interested in Master of Foxhounds as a potential wire opportunity at odds around about 6-1. I'm hoping those could be preserved because there's a lot of different ways that you can go in this spot. I don't really have anything against Masterpiece, but he just had a beautiful setup last time, and I think he's just going to be too short. Never have, I'll be rooting for him. He's a cool horse, and I'm always a fan of Michael McCarthy, but I felt like there was better value elsewhere, and one of the places I wanted to land, really the place I wanted to land, is Master of Foxhounds. Can you see him at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, he was the one that actually won that pace battle, faded at the end, but I thought he ran really well that day. Second off the bench now, again, goes out for D'Amato, who I feel like out west, if I need a trainer on grass to have a horse ready to go these longer distances, I think he's as good as anyone. I guess I'm curious a little bit about your thoughts on Tis a Magician. I mean, it's, again, from a class standpoint, he's probably the pick in here, but I just, combination of things, running style and the fact that they've just never really run him on the grass. I mean, I think he's probably going to be an underlay, isn't he?
I think so. I mean, and you could make an in Mandela we trust argument, but I think, I don't know. I might be grasping at straws and making things up here, but I do think when you're training for a giant public partnership along the lines of My Racehorse, maybe, I'm not saying they're telling Mandela where to run, but maybe Mandela feels like he could be a little bit more aggressive and throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks as opposed to being his usual conservative self. I just think there's too much other quality in here for me to want to get too stuck into him. He did have one sibling that won on the turf, but nothing near this level. There's a case to be made. I'm not going to fall out of my chair, but I'm not backing him in this spot. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thought. I mean, I just feel like he's not going to offer a great deal of value in this spot. He could win the race, certainly, and I'll tip my cap, but I don't know. I think there were more appealing options at better prices.
We have a race about to go off, and it is this next one at Saratoga. I had a horse that I liked in here a little bit. Rosa Veloce, who I think has had a couple of trips and, off the claim for a barn that plays the game well. I was interested in Rosa Veloce to maybe step up and look okay. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, I didn't have much of an opinion here. It's only a 4-horse field. I think the one is probably the speed in here. Should be the speed. And, if clears off, probably going to be tough to run down. But I think your horse has as good a chance as any to get underneath.
Yeah, we had some questions come in that we'll try to answer. Yeah, short summer dress, an aggressive 1-5, but I mean, I suppose it makes sense with all the scratches as a potential lone pace angle. It's hard to see who's going to go ahead and run with that one. And they're off here, and we'll see. I mean, Rosa Veloce, I'm pleased with this, staying a little bit closer. We had some, I'm not sure what these picks are. We have some picks coming in from Louis, but I don't know where that's happening. It's not, maybe it was in the Del Mar Handicap looking for the 6, 9, and 7. All right, let's see what happens.
You're in good shape.
Yeah, Rosa Veloce is really making a race of this, not conceding anything to this 1-5 shot. Now just needs to be able to finish the race. We'll see if that can happen. Sometimes these real shorties like Short Summer Dress have.
Oh no, you're gonna get beat by the 4.
Is the force coming? Yeah, the force coming. We're still running. And how about the far out? The 4 horses have a chance here. This is ridiculous. Let's see what ends up happening deep in the lane. It ain't gonna be me, but it unfolded. It fell apart and it went 3-4. Was that faster?
Wow.
Well, Rosa Veloce at least kept the 1-5 shot from just being alone on the lead. So
I was gonna say, if anything, you get an assist.
Yes. Unfortunately, you don't get paid for that, but
no.
But absolutely, in hockey, we'd put down the
yes, that's a helper.
Oh, pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, look, interesting. Those short fields. Someone told me back when we were doing the contest in a heavy way that short field longest price. Don't overthink it. And again, that your horse was the longest price, but don't just settle for shorties. Crazy things happen.
I heard that the first time from the late Jeff Sopman, who was one of the people who actually helped found the NHC and was a very talented and sharp contest player and horse player in general. And that was one of the things he'd always say: short field, long price. And I think I worked it in. I hope I worked that in to winning contest player. He was one of the people I dedicated that book to, along with Carrie Photius, both of whom we lost basically while I was working on that book. And I wanted to give shout outs to some of the guys who taught me some really good ideas about the game. And I always think of Sopman when that concept comes up. All right, we're going to have some winners here, so that's always fun. Louis is looking for the results of race 7. Yeah, we don't always show the results here. We could probably do that. Let me see if I can easily pull that up while we wait. I mean, we might as well. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt us any. I think we called the numbers, but I think that's about all that we did. And then, once we have this race at Saratoga official, we can get things figured out. All right, let's toggle results. It came 6, 9, and 7. Okay, yeah. Were those his numbers? So that could be a very good result. And exacta, $2 exacta, 180.76. I love these penny breaking.
Yeah, in Kentucky.
$2 try, nearly 1,200, 1190 and 78. So a good result there. I hope you were saying that because you had it. Katie, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Rob, as well. We really appreciate having you guys. Tell your friends. We say this all the time. Like we need to support these concepts that are so player friendly if we want to make test cases for people in the industry to do more stuff that gives back to the industry in the form of aftercare and also gives horse players a good shake. If there are people in this business who think, oh, horse players don't care, they'll just bet anything. We use the term degenerate as a badge of honor, but sadly, there are people out there who think it's like literal and that we don't care. And when we get good financial terms or good betting products like Kentucky Downs, we do ourselves a disservice if we don't support them. And yes, there's some enlightened self-interest in there because these people are clients, but I really mean that. And I would say that in any circumstances.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is. It's one of those things we always talk about. You need to back up these, whether it's a bet or a contest format or any of those sort of things, the way that the powers that be truly understand that it works. And I keep having my mother calling me on my phone. Mom, I'm working. We need to show that we support these things. And the best way to do that, not just saying that you enjoy it, you need to back it up with your dollar. So I think, things like this, they can only help. But again, we need to get other people out there. We can sit here and chirp and say this, that, and the other. But if the players are the ones that support this thing, that's when it'll really take hold. And hopefully you'll see more of these things in the future.
That's the idea. Nancy said, thank you for the 2-track format. Nearly guaranteed we'll be back with it next week. Probably something very similar. All the Kentucky Downs. Oh, wait, is Belmont back Thursday? Excuse me, Aqueduct. They're probably not back Thursday, are they?
I think they're going to take a week.
Okay, well, that makes sense, and it's smart for horse population reasons. So who knows? We could be single track Kentucky Downs. Let's wait and see. I got a little overly optimistic.
I could be wrong. Let me take a look because maybe they're not.
It would make sense to take a week after running the 5 days for 8 weeks, But take a look. And then AJ, as soon as that last race goes official, we'll have that leaderboard. We'll read that, and then we're out of here. Oh, and there it is. looks like Togo Travaglia, one of our regulars, gets the job done. 98.96 ahead of Mark Wilgard, John Rice, Larry Barkin, Ryan Flanders, the artist also known as Benny South Street, clocking in fifth. Bruce Meyer, Eric Kurzal, David Joy, Earl Pratt, and Steven Diaz, who I've had the pleasure of hanging out with the contest. Those are your tour point getters. You got to finish in the top 10 to get those tour points. But there's more winners because it's everybody who's going to go forward to the qualifier on Saturday. Of course, we should point out that you can just buy into the qualifier for $179 if you go over to horseplayers.com. This is, one way to win your way in. And then there'll be feeders tomorrow as well if you want to try to get in for short money. Anyway, the other people heading on to play Saturday, Sean O'Malley, Robert Shinsis Sr., Mark Henderson, Julie LeBoyko, Justin Dew, another frequent contributor, Jim Colbert, and I think then that's going to make Matthew Abbott, who was doing so well earlier, our bubble boy for today. I've had people come up to me and be like, yeah, you once called me the bubble boy. It was like I was feeling bad enough, and then you called me the bubble boy on the stream. Thanks for nothing.
Hey, man, just you're doing your job. Just tell them, it's no disrespect. Just telling people like it is,
Exactly.
To your point, Belmont at the Big A will begin Thursday, September 15th. So they're off next week.
All right, we may be single track. We'll look at it. We'll see what's in the Horse Players lineup. They're dealing with the same kinds of stuff as us. Maybe they'll shift early and they'll give us a chance to do something. But I don't know. All Kentucky Downs sound bad to me. It's certainly a fun track for contest purposes, and they've already started. The King of the Turf started today, but they are having more of them. Take a look. We actually have a pretty link on this. If you go to inthemoneypodcast.com/King Turf, you will be able to see the full lineup, the two more contests you get involved in. You will not be eligible for the overall championship if you didn't play today, but they're still pretty cool contests. And, if you like Kentucky Downs racing, a great way to add a little bit of value to the whole experience. That's it, Matt, unless you have any closing thoughts.
No, looking forward to this weekend. I mean, I feel like a broken record, but this is, I would say, the biggest weekend of the year, specifically in terms of the Classic, because if Flightline goes out and does what we all think he's capable of doing, then that Classic picture is very, very tight. If all of a sudden he stubs his toe and maybe he doesn't get the distance or whatever it may be, all bets are off. It's wide open, and then that makes that race at Saratoga earlier in the day that much more important. It makes Epicenter's Travers that much more important, and even these final preps that we'll see next month all that much more important. So a lot to play for. We're running out of time. There's only a few weeks left until the Breeders' Cup, but a lot to play for still.
Thank you, Matt Bernier. Thank you, producer AJ, sitting in ably for producer Craig. Thank you to our friends at Horseplayers. Thank you to our friends at the Breeders' Cup, especially Haley and Justin, who are so much fun to work with. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Ginchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.